scaly. I'm scaly, scaly, scaly. School scaly. I'm scaly, scaly, scaly.
Craig.
What?
What are you doing right now?
Drinking. Duh.
Must be a day ending in Y, Craig.
Are you?
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll drink to that.
Okay, please tell me you're drinking iced tea.
Well, sort of. It's a Harry Palmer.
You mean an Arnold Palmer, iced tea and lemonade?
Well, it's kind of like that, only instead of lemonade, it's Everclear.
Yeah, that tracks. Look, I need you to do something.
What? That's stupid. Wait, what do you need, female?
Okay, we haven't done a news update since March 15th.
You mean the day they killed that Caesar mammal?
You know about that?
Yeah, duh. I read the classics. The old stories usually have snakes in them, like that Cleopatra mammal. The heck with Aladdin, snakes have been traveling by carpet like forever.
Well, okay, I can't argue with that. But look, can you catch us up on the news since March 15th?
March 5th, that was like 1,800 shots ago.
I'm probably sure it's more. Okay, so why don't we start with the easiest target? Let's start with Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. What's he been up to for the last...
Drunky?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's drunk. He's been drinking. That's basically what he's been doing. He's been drinking and deleting stuff from Department of Defense websites and stuff. So it's like, they go, oh, you can't have any gay people. You can't talk about gay stuff. So they got rid of Medal of Honor recipients whose name was gay. Not like it was a lame name. No, his name was G-A-Y, gay, and he won a Medal of Honor, and that's so stupid.
Actually, I think that was the airplane. The Medal of Honor winner was a black fella.
I don't see your racist, mammal. I'm told I can say the N-word because I know the Black Mamba, but you know what?
Say the N-word.
Okay, but then he tried to get rid of Navajo code talkers. The Navajo code talkers. You think that Japanese? You know why the Navajo code talkers are so important?
Why?
Got to have a drink. Okay, but because you know who can't speak Navajo? The Japanese.
Okay.
The Japanese mammals. They can't speak Navajo.
So, what else has he been up to?
He's like banning trans people from serving in the military. That's so stupid. Why would you even want to do that? They're just if somebody wants to serve in the military, just let them serve. Let them shoot some other mammal. I don't know. It's like, oh, I can't shoot that mammal. He's too cute. No, that's not the way it goes. What are you doing, Duck? Duck, you're falling over. You're blowing my. Yeah, okay. But, and then they're like saying he's like about to lose his job because he's so stupid. Why hasn't he lost his job already? He's that stupid.
Okay, well let's move on. What about what's RFK Jr.? You know, the guy that's head of Health and Human Services. What's he been up to?
Probably heroin. I think he's like doing heroin and stuff. That's what they say. He's like, this guy is the worst. I'm like, okay, he's doing heroin, and then Hegseth is doing he's drinking, and so you don't have a cabinet. You got a medicine cabinet is what you got. Get these guys out. Clear out the medicine cabinet. Don't dump them in the water because then you get that stupid stuff just spreading around. But he's like, you mammals are getting measles. Measles, mammal. That stuff was supposed to be out in like the 70s or the 80s of last century, of last millennium. How stupid can you be? I guess we're going to find out because they keep pushing it every damn day how stupid they are. Gotta drink to this. He says he doesn't think people should take his medical advice. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Tell me something else I don't know. Like, oh, is the sky blue sometimes? Or, are mouthies tasty? Tell me that shit, stupid mammal bit. Secretary of telling me mouthies are good to eat. I don't even know why this guy's in charge. He took his grandkids swimming in a sewage-contaminated swimming pool. What? The creek, not a swimming pool, it was a creek, but he went there with his grandkids. That's going to be like RFK Jr. is going to be, I don't even know, or he gains superpowers, like he's Daredevil, he can't see, but he can taste things, and he goes around, he licks all the paint, and all the gas station pumps going, oh, there's an evildoer over there. Let me lick on that. La, 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 la. Hey, straw's getting away. Oh, there he goes. Okay.
Coming soon to Disney Plus.
Okay. Since we're talking about drug addicts, how about Elon Musk?
Elon Musk, ketamine. Hey, let me jump up. Oh, hey, look, I can jump up. And I take my kid to the Oval Office, and my kid's stupid, and I'm stupid, and my kid's like, you're not the real president, my daddy's fixed the election for you. And then Trump goes around and goes, hey, he fixed the election for me. And you're like, what? That seems reasonable. But, stupid straw, can't even, help. And that guy, life-giving alcohol. It's so good. And then he's shutting down Meals on Wheels. Yeah, let's starve old mammals because that's what's causing a drain on the economy, because you can't just go, hey, let's feed the mammal for $5 and not give tax breaks to billionaires to trillionaires, because that's crazy.
Vance, what do you got about him?
That guy, he's the worst. He killed Pope Frank. He went over to the Vatican and goes, hey, can I talk to the Pope? And they went, like, no, you try to hump couches and ottomans and love seats and whatever we got here, and the Pope don't want to see you. But he was so disgusting that the Pope died like a couple of days later. What the heck? We like Pope Frank. The new guy seems okay, and we'll see, because at least he went to school, unlike any of these stupids. He went over to Pakistan and India, and he started another war. You know how they're fighting?
Tell me.
Memes. They're memeing, and the Pakistanis are memeing all over the Indians, and they do not like it.
Begun. The meme war has.
But he comes back. This mammal comes back. The vice mammal. What's this vice? Couches, I think. Okay, but he comes back, and he meets with the Ohio State, the college football guys that play the sports ball. Hey, we're the football guys, and we run the ball down. And we make a touchdown. Touchdown! And we jump, because we're on ketamine. And then,
no, they're not on ketamine.
Oh, they're not on ketamine. Okay, no. But they jump, yeah. And they do a little dance. Okay. And then they go to meet with him at the White House. Oh, I won the championship. Oh, I'm a sports ball champion. And they go to the White House, and you know what happens?
What happened?
He broke their trophy!
What?
He broke their trophy!
What an asshole.
What an asshole!
Okay.
This guy's the worst! Well, no, he's vice worst.
Okay.
And then there's the shit gibbon, the tangerine toddler, the
Mango Mussolini.
That's a pretty good one, because he wants to be a fascist. He can't know because
Caesar.
Orange Julius Caesar, the Ides of March. Hey, pokey. You can't accuse me of nothing because I don't even have hands. So then he's like, oh, I'm going to sign an executive order. And we're like, you can barely write your name. That's not, that's like is he dead? Beep, 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 shrub, beep, 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 shrub. It's like flatliner thinking, oh, that guy is so dumb. And he's trying to get rid of the Department of Education. He's revoking legal statuses for Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans. He's sending people away from the United States to countries they're not even from. They're not even from there. What? That's not even a thing. Until now, they're like, oh, you know what? You're not even from here. You're from Liechtenstein. Here, go to a Nicaraguan prison because we don't know how planes work or how to look up your name on Wikipedia or anything. They're so stupid. You know what happened? He got mad about a picture of him. A portrait of him in Colorado because it looked too much like him. He didn't like it. He was like, I don't even look like that. We're all like, dude, seriously? Seriously, you look just like that. That's how you look. You got the complexion of a McNugget. You are just gross. You're gross and orange and stupid looking. And then he wants the executive orders to uproot anti-American ideology from the U.S. Museum. Dude, you don't even know how to go to a museum. You'd be like looking at the paint and you're like, is there lead in there? Can I lick it? Is that lead plate? Brags multiple times that Musk hacked the election for him. he didn't even, like, not even saying the quiet stuff out loud. This guy's, like, shouting it like, you guys, I'm not going to do an impression of him. He's so stupid. He's, like, trying to act tough. They call him a taco. You know what taco stands for? Trump always chickens out. Chickens! I'd eat a chicken in a heartbeat. Chickens, get in the eggs. Yeah, he's like that. He's so wimpy. He's such a loser. And he doesn't even look right. He's all ugly and stupid. And then he gets mad when you make a portrait of him that's ugly and stupid. He doesn't know how to read. You're going to have to get people to get in there and just, you can't even sign language to this fool. You know who knew sign language? Coco the gorilla knew sign language, and this guy can't even speak English. What? Yeah, why are you deporting people to countries that you can't even pronounce? You are the worst. I think it's probably time that we wrap this up. But this guy's the worst. The worst so far. I don't know, mammals get pretty bad, but he's the worst so far.
So what you're saying is that's been about the last 60-something days.
Yeah, that's about it.
Okay, well, thanks, Craig.
Yeah, no problem, female. Okay,
You want to sing us out?
Okay. I'm scaly, 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 scaly. So scaly, I'm scaly, scaly, scaly tonight.
Recorded in front of a lively studio audience in rowdy Round Rock, Texas. It's the What's Update with Xander IMDb.
Season 6.
Cognitive dissonance and
Socioeconomic disparity.
All right,
Let's get the party started. Welcome to the What's Update. I'm Xander IMDb. Let's get started. As much as it pains me to do so, I want to give a huge thank you and credit where it's due to Craig for doing the tedious work of catching all up on the Shit Weasel's first 100 days from where we left off on March 15th.
Yeah! They should call it the Eye of Stabbing People or something, because they're just so stupid.
Well, thank you, Craig, for not making a big deal out of it. As a reward, all of Tina's mousies now belong to you.
What? That's stupid! Those were my mousies first! No,
Yeah,
what you should do to reward me is rename our bowling league to Craig and the Mammals! Or we'll start a conjunto band, we'll call it Craig y los Mamaceros!
And other fun jokes you can tell yourself. So, with the shitstorm out of the way, we'll start the news with some good news for a change with our ongoing segment, Good On Ya. What do you call a man who, throughout a 3-decade career, led his team to 5 NBA championships, became the league's all-time wins leader, earned induction into the Basketball Hall of Fame, and led the U.S. men's national basketball team at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics to a gold medal? You call that absolute GOAT, Coach Greg Popovich.
Go Pop!
Hell yeah.
Go Pop!
Pop's career as a head coach wraps up with a record of 1,422 wins to 861 losses. He also led the Spurs to win 170 playoff games, the most by any coach with any one team, and the third most overall behind legends Phil Jackson at 229 and Pat Riley with 171. As y'all know, I'm unapologetically Round Rock strong and Round Rock proud. What you may not know is that I was born in San Antonio, and so were most of my family for several generations. The San Antonio Spurs will always be my home team, and Coach Greg Popovich is part of the reason why. Good on you, Coach.
Yeah,
Good
Coach!
on you,
Woo!
Moving on, they say that positive reinforcement, like giving a pet a treat, is one of the best ways to teach a stupid creature how you wish for them to behave. Fitting this theory, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia rolled out a custom mobile McDonald's food truck for the Trash Panda-in-Chief's recent Middle East tour. No problem getting the trackers into the animals if they'll just swallow them in one big ketchup-laden bite.
Gross. So gross.
So gross. Not to be outdone, I hear that Indian Prime Minister Modi is building a mobile couch for J.D. Vance.
Hey, Brody.
He's a dirty couch fucker.
Couch fucker. We can't confirm that story. We can't confirm that J.D. Vance fucked a couch. It would be journalistically non-integral to say that J.D. Vance fucked a couch. So
But
clearly
we can't say that he's a couch fucker.
We're not supposed to say his front tail was in the couch.
Yeah.
In
So
an inappropriate way.
clearly we can't say that J.D. Vance fucked a couch.
No.
Yeah. Back here in the United States of Dumbfuckistan, while attempting to defend against accusations that Trump has been flagrantly using his presidency to accrue wealth for himself and his allies, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt replied, quote, I think it's frankly ridiculous that anyone in this room would even suggest that Donald is doing anything for his own benefit. He left a life of luxury and a life of running a very successful real estate empire for public service, not just once, but twice. And again, the American public re-elected him back to this White House because they trust he acts in the best interest of our country and putting the American public first. That is not what President Trump does, and this White House holds ourselves to the highest of ethical standards.
No.
Yeah, according to DC Emergency Services, reporters were quickly evacuated as firefighters were called in to deal with a 3-alarm pants fire.
Pants fire!
Also, we're expected to believe a 34-time convicted felon has ethical standards?
He sure as shit can't spell it, so.
Yep, we'll get back to that later.
President Anopistan.
The Department of Homeland Security is considering making a reality show where immigrants will compete for fast-track U.S. citizenship. Reportedly, DHS Secretary Kristi Houndhitter-Nome is a big fan of the concept. Okay, alright, okay. Why don't we start with those white South African apartheid aficionados that Trump just invited over? And for a real treat, they can compete against Mexican cartel leader El Chapo's 17 family members who recently crossed into the U.S. as part of a deal with the Trump administration.
So we're talking Black Mirror Hunger Games.
Something like that. You got a smug look on your face, Craig?
What do you got?
Something to say?
Mama, they should have him ride unicycles with no feet through Kristi Nome's dead puppy quarry.
Oh, that's not okay, man.
That ain't right,
That's so
that ain't
not
right.
Okay.
But, you know, for once in a millennium, the snake might be onto something there.
Well, broken clock, yada yada.
Yep. Continuing the deluge of stupid shit, Orange Julius Caesar and his cadre of crass cronies recently fired the Librarian of Congress, Carla Hayden. Hired in 2016, Hayden was both the first woman and the first black American to hold the position. Trump allies called for firing her and other librarians for promoting children's books with, quote, radical content. Okay, here are a few facts about the Library of Congress that you may not know. 1. The Library of Congress has every book, even shitty ones including The Kid's Guide to President Trump and Hillbilly Elegy by Couch Molester Vance.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
2. You can't check out books from the Library of Congress. 3. You can only apply for a reader card to read the books on site. And 4. You have to be 16 years old to even apply for that reader card. Of course, Trump doesn't know these things because he's got the mind of a toddler and doesn't know how to fucking read in the first place. Unfortunately, he probably never will because after the Trump administration pulled funding from PBS Kids by terminating education grants, a fake LinkedIn profile popped up for Sesame Street's Elmo looking for a new gig. In a since-deleted post on X, Elmo said, quote, Unfortunately, Elmo was recently laid off because of the federal budget cuts. Elmo worked at Sesame Street for 45 years. Elmo is sad. Elmo loved his time on Sesame Street. Oscar the Grouch, however, has lived in a garbage can since 1969, so he was already well prepared for this economic downturn. Oscar the Grouch, the GOAT.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of Gen X incarnate, you know?
I think so.
From Sesame Street to New York's Times Square, a brand new 12-foot-tall bronze statue is turning some heads. The art installation, created by Thomas Price, features a stunning plus-sized black woman gazing confidently into the distance.
She's thick.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, she's plus size. She's 12 feet tall.
Shut up, Craig. Now, I don't know what scares maggots more. A proud black woman in Times Square or the entire population of Harlem. Meanwhile, the San Antonio Wax Museum still can't display the Trump statue due to its incredibly punchable face.
Punch, punch.
So many haymakers. At a White House press conference following trade negotiations with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, the Cheeto-in-Chief referred to toy company Mattel as a country, threatening a 100% tariff on manufactured toys. As such, I'm sure he plans to depose President Barbie and annex it as America's 52nd state, following Canada, obviously. Ken will be appointed as the head of the new executive branch of the Department of Mojo Doja Casa Housing and Development. Additionally, Weird Barbie will be tasked with teaching Donnie Dumpshit how to read. Godspeed, ma'am, I do not envy your new gig. According to LGBTQ plus advocacy groups, the Texas state legislature has seen more anti-queer bills proposed by Republican congressmen this year than in any other legislative session in any other state. This includes another attempt at House Bill 239 to force people to use bathrooms fitting their assigned gender at birth, and Senate Bill 13 to ban books with queer themes. Drag queen, superhero, and friend of the show, Maxine LaQueen, was on the scene to protest SB 18, which would ban drag queen story hours, and thoroughly pissed off legislators by simply asking if any of them had actually been to a drag show.
That clip was tight.
Yeah. Plus, she was looking like a superhero, as usual.
Absolutely.
That ain't even a joke, folks. She was smoking their punk asses live on the Senate floor, and it was magnificent.
Yeah.
As usual, Maxine is thoroughly based.
Yeah, she is.
Hell yeah. Texas Lieutenant Governor and Ken Paxton's pegging poodle, Dan Patrick. Yep, there's an image.
No.
Gleefully announced that the Texas Senate has successfully passed all 40 of his priority bills, which have been sent to the House for consideration. 20% of Danny Boy's legislative priorities are designed to fuck with non-Christians, queers, librarians, and women. For example, SB 10, placing the 10 Commandments in schools while simultaneously not following any of them. SB 11, protecting the freedom to pray in school, especially in active shooter situations.
Oh, damn.
Yep.
SB 13, guarding against inappropriate books in schools, like dictionaries or history books. SB 18, stopping drag time story hour to make room for MAGA Bible stand-up.
No.
SB 24, educating Texas students on the horrors of communism while actively promoting fascism.
They don't know the difference between those two words anyway.
Might be onto something there. SB 31, Life of the Mother Act, unless she dies of sepsis during delivery. And SB 33, stopping taxpayer-funded abortion travel while continuing taxpayer-funded razor wire pontoons. It's like tubing for sadists. I tell you, Dan Patrick is an irregular-shaped mole on the ass of Texas. We just need to freeze that thing off and chuck it in the fucking bin.
Chuck it in the bin!
It all just stays in the bin.
Stays in the
Stays
bin.
in the bin. Put the lid on. Keep out the trash pandas.
Need one of those, biohazard bins.
Yeah.
That ain't good. Now, while we're on the subject of evil shitheels, Texas Governor Greg Steels on Wheels Abbott signed a controversial $1 billion school choice bill into law. Opponents of the bill say it will help private schools, particularly the hyper-religious ones, of course, at the expense of funding public schools. Once again, Abbott pulls up the ramp after he takes the flash pass to the top.
Asshole.
Yep. Now, just to be clear, in Texas, you only get a choice after you have the baby, not before. And finally, astronomers believe they've detected a possible signature of life on a distant planet.
Cool.
Repeated analysis of planet K2-18b, which orbits a star 120 light-years away, shows an abundance of a molecule which, on Earth, is created by living organisms like marine algae. The possibility of the planet's habitability is questionable at best, according to Christopher Glein, a planetary scientist at the Southwest Research Institute in San Antonio, go Spurs, saying, quote, "Unless we see E.T. waving at us, it's not going to be a smoking gun."
If I want to see aliens waving smoking guns, I'll watch Christy Nome's reality show.
Ooh.
Oh, shut up, Craig.
You should have.
In a contrasting terrestrial study, scientists can detect no brain activity from within the White House.
It's not coming from within the house.
Shut up, Craig. Alright, stick around, we'll be right back.
Yay!
Welcome back, everybody. So, given that Pride Month is coming up fast, I wanted to put something together to get in the mood. Partially for the good of the community, but mostly because every time somebody in Texas uses the word queer, Greg Abbott's ulcers multiply. Gotta do some justice for Maxine. On that subject, I had recently taken a master's class on race, gender, and sexuality in American television. It was pretty fun and insightful all around. Mary Beltran, best professor ever. Well, and Kathy Fuller-Seeley.
Yeah, definitely.
But I decided to do my final paper on a subject that doesn't come up a lot in media analysis, bisexuality. Unfortunately, it was still a graduate-level class, so the material I put together contained far fewer jokes, anecdotes, and obscenities than I would have liked. So
none.
Yeah. I couldn't inflict it on my cohort, so I'll inflict it on y'all instead. It's the price of doing business with the Rainbow Mafia, you see. So, let's kick this off with clearing up a few misconceptions about bisexuality. In the modern context, it's defined as, quote, people who have the capacity to form attraction and or relationships to more than one gender. To clarify, the bi aspect of the whole thing doesn't preclude attraction to people outside of the supposed gender binary. It just means 2 or more gender identities with whom you'd like to make the hunka-chunka. This comes up a lot when defining and differentiating between bisexuality and pansexuality. In that case, a common definition is that bi refers to attraction to more than one gender in different ways between each gender, while pan refers to attraction regardless of gender presentation or identity. It changes depending on who you ask, but the big difference is usually, I like the wine, not the label, but different wines pair well with different foods, versus, I don't care what gender you are, put on the maid outfit. Yeah. Feel free to look that one up.
No.
With that out of the way, let's talk about the main issue with representing bisexuality on screen, the issue being that it isn't. There's a concept in media studies and society at large known as bisexual erasure. This theory proposes that bisexuality doesn't get much attention or representation in society or media due to it being more complicated than people are willing to deal with. As a whole, bisexuality poses a threat to heteronormative stability and the oversimplified understanding of people being gay or straight and nothing else. As usual, it goes back to assholes trying to keep everything in neat little binary boxes and refusing to think outside of them.
I don't know, there's some people that think too much about the box, you know what I'm saying?
Yep. And unfortunately, they're in the Texas legislature. So, there are 3 main forms of bisexual erasure, each functioning to remove a more complex understanding of sexuality in order to keep everyone in a binary choice of normal and marketable. First off, you have class erasure, which refers to assuming that a bi individual is either straight and looking for attention, or gay but in denial. This comes together in a long-standing meme of 2 gay for the straights and 2 straight for the gays. Secondly, you have individual erasure, usually presented as assuming someone is just going through a phase. And finally, you have delegitimation, the stigmatization and assignment of stereotypes or assumptions to bisexuality. At this point, the concept can no longer be ignored, so people associate it with a negative stigma to write it off as improper or unnecessary in larger discussions. In TV and movies, this usually pops up as the horn dog bisexual, the confused disaster bisexual, or the marketable tertiary character. When it can't be ignored, studios find a way to profit off it instead. So, it's true that bisexuality gets overlooked, written off, or stigmatized in media. However, it doesn't necessarily have to be that way, as good bi characters aren't actually that uncommon. You got Luz Noceta from The Owl House, Alucard from Castlevania, Captain Jack Harkness from Doctor Who and Torchwood, and Klaus Hargreaves from Umbrella Academy. The first 3 seasons, though, not the crappy conclusion.
That one was terrible.
However, the one example I want to focus on is none other than Detective Rosa Diaz from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah, Rosa.
Throughout the show, Detective Diaz is portrayed as an unflappable, stoic, and strong female badass, often choosing to show little emotion aside from frustration towards those who get in her way. Despite this, she keeps consistent and engaging relationships with the rest of the detectives of the 9-9, being good friends with Jake Peralta from their days at the police academy, serving as a pseudo-mentor for Amy Santiago in times of hardship, being the target of an unrequited crush from Charles Boyle, and, most notably, sustaining a friendship and a confidant nature with Captain Holt. This dynamic seemed like a natural occurrence, as their similarly unemotional and matter-of-fact approaches to activities at the precinct made for compelling dialogue and interactions between the two. Ultimately, Rosa is a well-established character within the narrative and dynamics of the show. Keep this in mind for later. During the 9th episode of Season 5, a minor subplot occurs when Charles, having moved on from his crush on Rosa, tries his hand at playing matchmaker for her, suggesting various potential male partners. However, near the end of the episode, Charles notices Rosa talking on the phone with someone, and Rosa informs him that she is already in a relationship with a woman, coming out to Charles as bisexual. While this inclusion of a queer character was far from a series first, it represented a rare point of vulnerability for Rosa, as she is notoriously secretive about her personal life, and appears genuinely caught off guard and nervous about what will happen next. A feeling shared by Charles at the end of this episode and going into the next. Rosa wasn't ready to be outed, and Charles consistently fails at keeping secrets, thus creating tension. However, in contrast to the looming narrative risk of other coming-out stories in media, the next episode addresses the topic at the very beginning of the main plot, after the cold open, a brief scene or sketch used before the opening credits, typically surrounding Jake's antics. After the title sequence concludes, we cut to the end of a briefing from Captain Holt before the squad is dismissed for their duties. Holt opens the floor to any issues that must be addressed, and Rosa stands up to address the room with an uncharacteristically nervous expression. She admits that she is generally a pretty private person, but here we go, before coming out to the squad as bisexual. Afterward, back to her usual stoic demeanor, she allows precisely, quote, 1 minute and 0 seconds for discussion, during which the team asks a series of respectful questions. Amy asks how long Rosa has known, which she obliges, referring to early crushes on two characters of different genders from Saved by the Bell. Preferences that are immediately questioned by Jake, because, Kelly Kapowski was not in that list.
Yeah, no doubt.
So, then Terry Jeffords asks what prompted Rosa to come out now, to which she references how Charles found out, and her confidence that he would not be able to keep the secret for much longer, accompanied by a cutaway to Charles floundering on the subject. Jake asks if Rosa is seeing anyone at that moment, and she says she is seeing someone named Tiffany. Jake rightfully figures out that it is a fake name, so the squad cannot look her up, and Rosa confirms, reaffirming her hidden, mysterious lifestyle. And then finally, Captain Holt, the long-standing LGBTQ+ representation for the show, chimes in that this series of events is playing out far more favorably than when he came out to his colleagues, highlighting significant progress in the precinct. This scene works well for one style of the coming-out narrative, centered around positive affirmation of identity from a group of trusted peers and friends. Despite her apprehension beforehand, Rosa opens herself up to the squad in a way that still fits with the reclusive and armored nature of her character, which the audience has seen thus far in the series. This is important, as it shows that despite the new information being revealed, it's still the same Rosa that the audience has grown to know and love. This is then reinforced by the team's neutral but supportive reaction and participation in Rosa's comfortable, limited scope of questioning. The humor introduced into the scene by each character is not at Rosa's expense or disparaging her identity and trust with the precinct, but rather an affectionate and understanding continuation of previous character dynamics. So, what I like about this scene is that despite the addition to Rosa's overall character and new plot point for the series, it really didn't change much from the way she or the show was written. Bisexuality isn't a point of shock value or marketability or any other way in which it's exploited or denigrated to make a profit in TV and film. It's a legitimate identity that often gets overshadowed or ignored due to it not fitting into a comfortable binary for society. But clearly it can be done right, not just with Rosa, but with other beloved characters in media. Overall, bisexual representation is tricky. When done well, it adds depth and character to a show while putting the community in a good light. When done poorly, it's nothing more than a cheap cash grab or checking off a box for diversity. I'm just glad that it's getting some better attention these days in the former category rather than the latter. As Captain Holt said towards the end of the episode, every time someone steps up and says who they are, the world becomes a better, more interesting place.
Yeah.
Stick around, we'll be right back with Maz Jobrani. Welcome back. Let's jump right in with our 3 standard questions. Who, you, what, do, and why?
My name is Maz Jobrani. I'm a stand-up comedian, and I do it to pay my mortgage.
So it's just for... It is about the money, Spider-Man.
Absolutely. No, I do it because I love it. I really do. I've been doing it 26 years, and I always encourage people, if you're able to find what you love and you can make it a living, then you're ahead of the game.
Excellent. Do you have anything coming up or coming out at any point that you want to promote for the show?
Yeah, I currently am on tour. If people want to come see me live, I'm going to be all over the country. They can go to mazjobrani.com or they can follow me on socials. It's at Maz Jobrani. And I believe I will be putting out a special on YouTube probably in late July, early August. So, and by the way, I have 1 million clips online. I've got a Netflix special called Immigrant. I've got a special on YouTube right now called The Birds and the Bees. So if anybody's curious, they can just find 1 million clips of mine.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Immigrant, we actually reviewed some of we went back and watched that one for reviewing for this interview in particular, and I gotta say, it's if you didn't know it was shot in 2017, you'd think it was done last week. So did you ever think that we'd be in a similar or same sinking boat like that again?
Yeah, it's funny because they say sometimes they go, is your material evergreen, which means will it last? Is it basically time neutral so it can last anytime, anywhere? And to your point, that was in 2017. That was at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. There's a lot of material about Trump and immigrants and all that stuff. And who knew that that was going to be evergreen material? I mean, yeah, you could run it again and it would be the same thing. We're still living the same dilemmas and problems of 2017.
Looking back on that special, how would you say that your comedic approach has evolved since then?
The more you do it, the better you get. It's kind of like being a Jedi. I think I heard Chris Rock make that analogy one time. It's just you put in the time, put in the time, put in the time, and 5 years in, you think you got it. Then 10 years in, you're like, oh, I didn't have it. Now I got it. And then 15 years, and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm very confident and comfortable on stage. And I've had to continue to come up with new material. That's the other challenge of comedians is, if you're a musician, you can sing your hits the rest of your life and people are going to pay and love it. When you're a comedian, you got to come up with new stuff all the time. So I've shot, I think, 6 or 7 specials. And every time I do it, I'm like, I need new material, need new material. So I think I've gotten stronger at doing that.
So you said your next special is going to be on YouTube. In the long run, do you feel that YouTube has democratized comedy for new and veteran comedians, or is it a whole new ballgame?
Listen, the social media has democratized this world. There used to be a handful of gatekeepers, and you had to be on that network or be chosen by whoever was running that network or whoever was making the decisions. Now, we all know you have, every day there's a new person popping up you've never heard of, and they've got 1 million followers, and they're touring. And so, yeah, it allows, social media allows comedians to find their audience and have their audience find them. And it's a hustle. You got to keep hustling. You got to keep putting stuff out. You got to keep finding ways to get in front of people.
All right. So backing this all up a bit, like down to the brass tacks of the whole thing, what inspired you to get into comedy in the first place? Like, I read that you were a PhD program at like UCLA, and you just got into comedy like on a whim.
I actually, as a kid, when I was like around 10 years old, was when I first discovered Eddie Murphy. And back then in the early 80s, he was a rock star. So me and a lot of comedians from my generation all looked up to him as the person we wanted to be. And then when I was in junior high school, I started doing musicals and getting on stage, and I really loved it. And the director would tell me, hey, you've got that it factor. You're comfortable on stage. You could do this. And then I did a theater program in high school, and the teacher said, you got the thing. And I kept being told that I could be on stage and do something with it, but I didn't know what. And also having immigrant parents, they didn't know what. So they convinced me to go be a lawyer. So I studied political science undergrad. And then while I was in my undergraduate years, I spent 1 year abroad in Italy in my junior year. And there was a professor there, and I really liked what he was doing. So I thought, hey, maybe if I become a professor, I'll make my parents happy, and I get to stand in front of people and kind of do what I want to do. So that's why I was in that PhD program at UCLA. But again, while I was there, I went to the theater department. I started doing a play and loved being in the play and dreaded kind of the PhD program. And so I dropped out. I said, let me go for this. And I tried it for a minute and realized, oh, this is harder than I thought, because Hollywood is very competitive. So I got a day job in advertising. And then eventually in my mid-20s, I had a guy who worked at the advertising agency. His name was Joe Ryan. And Joe was in his 60s. And he saw a clip of a play I had been doing. And he goes, hey, you're pretty funny. Have you thought about doing this? And I said, Joe, I've been told my whole life by different teachers I should do it. I should do it. And I said, I'm going to try and save up some money. And when I'm in my 30s, I'm going to give it a shot. And he goes, listen, come to my office. Sat me down. He goes, I'm in my 60s now. There were some things I wanted to do in my 20s, and I just kept putting it off. So if you really want to do it, do it. And it was a light bulb moment. I said, you know what? I'm going for it. So I signed up for some improv classes. I signed up for some stand-up comedy classes. And that was 26 years ago. I haven't looked back.
It's a very interesting pipeline from stage to professor back to stage.
Yeah, exactly. Full circle.
Oh yeah. And speaking of what you were talking about with I was like Eddie Murphy and stuff. Pretty much every Gen Xer I know or talk to has seen that Eddie Murphy special, so it seems to be kind of a touchstone for comedy.
Yeah. No, everybody loved him.
Yeah. So from there, let's talk about the Axis of Evil comedy tour. How exactly did that come about?
So the owner of the Comedy Store, her name was Mitzi Shore. She was kind of a guru in the world of comedy, and so that's where people like David Letterman, Jay Leno, Robin Williams, Jim Carrey, you name it, Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor. A lot of people went through that club, and it's kind of a mecca of comedy, and it still is. It's a well-known place, and so in the early 2000s, Mitzi had me as one of the regulars of the club, and when you're a regular, that means you're performing there regularly. And she was Jewish, and she thought there's going to be a need for a positive voice for Middle Easterners and Muslims in the near future. This is before September 11th. So she decided to put a show together with me and Ahmed, who's Egyptian, and Aaron Cater, who's Palestinian, and Sam Tripoli, who's Armenian. Anybody who was brown that was not Latino was on our show. We had an Indian guy. We had a white girl who belly danced. And she called the show the Arabian Nights. So we would do these Arabian Night shows from time to time, and people would come see the show. And part of the discussion that would happen is Iranians are not Arabs, and a lot of Iranians are very snobby about that. So I'd have people come up afterwards and be like, hey, I enjoyed the show, but we're not Arabs. And I was like, I know, I didn't name the show. Mitzi Shore named the show. And so me, Ahmed, Aaron Cater, we kind of had in our mind that we wanted to change the name and make it a little more, relevant. And so that's around the time when the George Bush gave that famous speech where he said there's an axis of evil. It's Iraq, North Korea, and Iran. And so we thought, hey, let's take that and put Axis of Evil comedy special and show the funny side of people from that part of the world rather than the Axis of Evil enemy side. So that's what we did. We took it, we changed the name, and started touring with it, and it was successful. And then we ended up with a special on Comedy Central, and then we ended up going to the Middle East in the end of 2007 and did a 5-country tour that was like sold out the whole way, and it really put us on the map. So that's what the Axis of Evil was.
On topic, how did the trajectory of your comedy career change, or if any, after 9/11?
So I started doing stand-up in 98. And when you first start, I took a class, and the lady in the class said, talk about what makes you unique. So for me, being an Iranian American, I was talking a lot about my upbringing as an Iranian American and being an immigrant to this country. And I was talking about that stuff. And then once September 11th happened, I was still talking about that stuff, but suddenly the press was interested in these Middle Easterners and these Muslims that are telling jokes. This is now when all of a sudden the Muslim world has become the enemy, but the press is calling and saying, hey, you guys are telling jokes. And so we got a lot of press for it because we were, doing what we loved doing. And it just so happened that this big tragedy had happened, and then our part of the world was the enemy. So I think it probably got us noticed more, and there was probably more people intrigued about us. And at the same time, I think there was enough people that are good-hearted, good-minded people who thought, hey, I think it's good that you're putting out this positive side of people from the Middle East, because the truth is, a majority of people from the Middle East or the Muslim world are not violent. They're not the ones who would fly an airplane into a building. And yet that's how we were depicted.
So in the long run, what impact would you say you've had on larger perception of Iranian Americans or Middle Eastern portrayals in media, in general?
It's hard to quantify that. I know that we were one of the first group of people that was doing that, and so I had people reach out sometimes and say, hey, after September 11th, I really hated Muslims, but then I saw your comedy special and I realized, oh my God, you guys are just people as well. And also, they would see us on stage, but they would also see our audience that had people from Middle Eastern background and laughing. And so I think it had some effect of, it kind of goes back to what I said about Richard Pryor. When you are able to perform and have people within the mainstream see you, it helps change their perception of your background. So I think it had an effect. I don't know how much, but I know that I personally had people tell me that the special or some of the material had changed their opinions.
So outside of just your like advocacy for people with Middle Eastern descent, you also do a lot of work for cancer charities. So what inspired your like action and getting into the cause for such charities?
I've always been someone who I'm a pretty sympathetic person, empathetic person, and so I've always been someone who, when different charities have tapped me, whether it was for cancer or it was like for children, or it was for immigrants, for refugees. Anytime I've been asked, I tend to agree to do events and support. And for a while there, I was with an organization called the Persian American Cancer Institute that was trying to encourage people from my background to register with a bone marrow registry, because when someone needs that match, they usually match within their own communities. And so my community does not have that many people that are registered for the bone marrow registry, because a lot of immigrants just don't do that. So I tried as much as I could, and I continue to try to help when I can. I also have I lost my sister to breast cancer. Her name was Miriam. She made a movie called Everything Must Change, which was a documentary about her experience with the cancer. And so, of course, I have a soft spot on my heart for that as well. So I just tend to try and help when I can.
It's very deep. Well, in like once this episode comes out, we'll try to put a link to that film in the info.
Great.
Spread the awareness a bit. Now, on to something a little less serious, lighten the mood a little bit. You talked about your theater background a bit. What role did you always want to play on stage, but never got the chance?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wanted to play Stanley Kowalski in The Streetcar Named Desire. I thought that would have been a fun role to sink your teeth into. I think I did a monologue from it in one of my acting classes. But yeah, there was that, and then there's also the Mammoth stuff. A lot of the Mammoth stuff, because it's so rich with language. Yeah, I still would. If a hardy part came like that, I'd still want to do it.
All right. Did you ever do any musicals, perhaps?
Just in junior high school, I did The Boyfriend, and I did Little Abner. I was Little Abner in Little Abner. And then actually my senior year in high school, we had a program called the ETC, the Ensemble Theater Company, and it was in Northern California. And they had a program where the students would write and direct and choreograph and just put the whole show together. It was called Giant Turtle. It was the end of the year. And one of the kids wrote a modern day Batman. And it was Robin was really the main lead, but Batman was also there as kind of like the foil, and I played Batman.
Nice. All right. Well, I know you're on a bit of a time crunch and you got other things to do, so we'll finish with something silly and fun. We got a big question that we're asking pretty much every guest this season, just like a little last hurrah, So, tell me truly, if you could be any kitchen appliance, gadget, or implement, which one would you want to be and why?
Oh, I'd be a pizza cutter because I like pizza, and I'd like to, and it's pretty smooth. Obviously, you can cut people from time to time, so hopefully I wouldn't want to hurt anybody. But a pizza cutter just seems fun. It seems like a fun kitchen appliance to be.
The rocker one or the
the full like a rocker or
No, the circular one, the one that you hold with the handle and you go like that.
Nice. Going classic. Alright, well, love what you do and you'll never work a day in your life, alright?
Exactly.
Alright, well, Maz Jobrani, everybody. We'll be right back.
Oh, hey! First, I'd like to thank our amazing guest, Maz Jobrani. Not only did he agree to interview for the show, but he also added his voice and experience to my master's thesis research project, so good on him for that. We also always want to thank the half dozen or so of you who watch this half-assed vaudevillian plate-spinning act regularly. We do this for your entertainment as well as our own, so if our absurd tales of ribaldry take your mind off of the horrors of the world, even for a few minutes, then we feel like we've done our job. If you can think of anything we missed, or to think there's a story that we should cover in our own delightfully filthy way, please leave a comment to let us know. Either way, try to stay sane, tell the people you care about that you love them, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and as always, it is what it is.